Hello, my name is Robert Fantina. My co-presenter is Khawaja Ahmad Akbar. You're listening to Geopolitics, Exploring Myth versus Reality. Each week, we interview distinguished experts from around the world to explain and clarify the most pressing international issues of the day. Our guest today is Dr. Altaf Wani, and I'll ask him to please introduce himself.
Thank you, Robert, for having me, and Khawaja for having me on this show. My name is Altaf Wani. Basically, I am from the Indian-occupied Kashmir, currently living in Islamabad, Pakistan. I'm a Kashmiri resistance activist, and I have been associated with resistance for the last 34 years. Currently, I am chairman, Kashmir Institute of International Relations, Islamabad. That's my short introduction.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. And we're very happy to have you here with us today. I should mention that due to some technical difficulties, Khawaja may not be able to join us, but hopefully he will be able to. So I'd like to ask you some questions about the situation there. We know, of course, that the situation in Kashmir has been desperate for years due to the oppression of the Indian government, but this worsened since the abrogation of Articles 370 and 35A on August 5th of 2019. As a result of this, Kashmir lost the limited autonomy that it had previously been granted. This has been manifested in every aspect of the lives of Kashmiris. Can you comment on the situation in general for Kashmiris today?
Thank you once again. As Robert, you said, the situation in Kashmir has been very much abysmal for the last 34 years almost, and there has been a military crackdown on the people of Kashmir from the beginning of 1989, and which is continuing till date. What we have said during the period of time, the Indian military gave unlimited powers to its army, to its military forces, and also to the police, so that they can kill, maim, or destruct any property. And for that purpose, they have all blanket impunity, and they cannot be tried in any court of law. Because Kashmir is a political problem, it is basically the people of Kashmir demand the right self-determination as promised or recognized by the United Nations Security Council, and also accepted by the Indian government at that time and government of Pakistan. But that plebiscite did not happen, that right did not materialize till date, and which forced the people of Kashmir to have to carry on their political struggle for decades together and face the repression of the Indian government. And what you call that, after the August 5th, 2019, the situation became more worse in Kashmir. It is almost terrifying to say what the situation is. It was almost for 6 months, it was complete communication blackout in Kashmir, internet shutdowns, which have been documented by the UN Special Reports and all international human rights watchdogs, how the people of Kashmir, the kind of internet crackdown they faced, the kind of communication blockade they faced, and the double lockdown. And then the world witnessed lockdown. What does lockdown mean? We were calling it a lockdown again and again, but world could not understand the meaning of the lockdown. But after COVID, when the lockdown was imposed in almost throughout the world, and people understood the lockdown, and even though they had the facility of connectivity through internet to talk to their loved ones, but the Kashmiris did not have. And currently, what we see after the August 5th, the situation in Indian-occupied Kashmir, the current regime of India has almost, they have decided the way they want to almost to end the identity of the people, the Kashmiri identity, their culture, our language, our each and everything, whatever we have in kind of Kashmir as Kashmiris. For that matter, they introduced a set of laws, as you have talked many times on that. You have been watching the Palestinian issue over the years, and you have been a good watcher of the Kashmir also. The way the Israeli settler colonialism was enacted in Palestine, the same kind of settler colonialism is now being taken over in Indian occupied Kashmir by the government of India by giving the state subjects to domicile certificates to the non-state subjects from the India, and bringing up Hindu fanatics to Kashmir so that they can buy land, they can become the property owners in Kashmir on one hand, and giving them the jobs in Kashmir this way. And on the other hand, they also authorized the Indian military to declare any area as strategic and take the lands of the people of Kashmir. Even the smallest of the things of mining and other things, all these contracts are being given to the non-Kashmiris. And this way, the government of India, on one hand, want to change the demography of Kashmir. That's one. On the other hand, they have their own way to make the people of Kashmir landless, jobless, and homeless in their homeland by different tactics. Currently, what we see over the period of years, we saw the military repression, what they have been doing, but now they have armed another organ of the state that's called National Investigating Agency, NIA of India, and has also introduced a new set of laws, which is called the, it's not new, it was a sedition law, was there in the colonial era, but now this law has been made more stringent in Kashmir. That's called UAPA, Unlawful Prevention Activities Act. And under this act, whole set of Kashmiri political leaders are languishing in different Indian jails. All journalists who was almost 27 journalists from last 3 years, they are facing the incarceration in different jails, and scores of them have been called to the police stations, to the interrogation centers, have been asked not to report on Kashmir. In a way, the reporting has been criminalized in Kashmir, and freedom of expression has been chilled in Indian occupied Kashmir, what I say. Human rights defenders, internationally acclaimed human rights defender Khurram Parvez, he has also been put behind bars on the same sedition charges. Like that foot soldier of human rights, Hasan Nontu, he is also facing the sedition charges in Kashmir. This is on one hand. On the other hand, what the government of India has recently tried, firstly they banned some of the organizations like Jamaat Islami and JKLF. But now all the properties of all these organizations and their activists have been annexed. And not only these, but all those associated with the freedom who have been the part of this freedom, their properties have been seized by the government of India, and there is a policy to issue a separate identity card to those families who are associated with the freedom struggle. So their way, they are otherizing the people of Kashmir and Indian occupied Kashmir, and making it that in future none of these people can get a government job. They cannot have any say in their end. They are almost in threats. Recently, they also raided my house in Kashmir. They took all the cellular phones and all electronic gadgets of my family. And why? Because I have associated with it, and I have always been creating awareness, talking all over the world for the rights of the people of Kashmir. The only sin of mine is that. And likewise, all the activists, recently we saw some of our doctors who are outside overseas, engineers who are overseas, or academicians overseas, they were writing, they were creating, but their families are also being victimized, and one of them has been recently declared as terrorist by the Indians. And this is way to suppress the voices overseas, the voices of Kashmiris who are outside the Kashmir, who raise the voice. They are trying to suppress those voices also.
Dr. Thank you. You've covered so many areas, and there's so many to cover. I want to go into some of them a little more deeply.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the plebiscite. UN Security Council 47, which passed in April of 1948, states categorically that the status of Kashmir is to be decided based on the principles of self-determination. The Indian government has never allowed this. And as you mentioned, they're now flooding Kashmir with Hindu nationalists. They're now taking all the jobs there. They're buying property. They're seizing property. They're changing the demographic makeup of the nation. Does it appear to you that India which has never allowed this plebiscite to take place, is going to marginalize the Muslim majority population and make it a minority, and then allow this vote, and then they can say that they've satisfied the UN resolution, because at that point they will have changed Kashmir demographics.
You see, firstly, this is one apprehension is this, that people talk about this, that the government of India, when they succeed in changing the demography in Indian occupied Kashmir, they are totally in control of, they have the whole of the Hindu population there. Then they may ask for a plebiscite and they say, now we are in majority. But as a person, I see Indians have never such an ambition to have a plebiscite in Kashmir, because they know that they see with other lenses. But unfortunately, the world sees India as a democratic state, as a secular state. But Indians do see Kashmir as through the lens of religion. They see as it's a Hindu land and it should be transferred to the Hindus again. So this is their way. They are not concerned about. They do talk about the Azad Kashmir. They do talk about the Gilgit-Baltistan takeover. That land. They said, now this is final. We are marching ahead. When they accepted this plebiscite in the UN, and when they all, because at that time, I think Kashmiri struggle was marching ahead. They were pushing the Dogra forces and Indian forces back to the Baks, and they were almost to taking the Kashmir. At that time, Indian Prime Minister then rushed to the United Nations Security Council and accepted. Their claim was rejected by the United Nations Security Council that they had an accession from the Maharaja, but the Council said it should be referred to the people of Kashmir. The Security Council resolution you mentioned. But after that, they submitted their occupation in Kashmir, military occupation, and then started calling it an integral part of India, and now taking the unilateral decisions which are in contravention to the all UN Security Council resolutions, UN CIP resolutions, and also to the bilateral agreements between India and Pakistan, and between India and Kashmiris, with the Kashmiri leaders who are collaborating with them, with whom they decided the Article 370, 35A, and all that. This was a constitutional arrangement talked with them. But now India has taken all this. The only aim of the Indian current regime, which you all know is a fascist regime, is led by some racist type of people in the RSS type people, and they'll see Kashmir through lens of religion. They want to implement their Hindu agenda in Kashmir, not only in Kashmir. They have talked about the region. They say this whole of the region belongs to the Hindus, and this is so they have some expansion designs. They don't stop there if they are not stopped. And the way you have been witnessing the situation in India, the Indian Muslims are being marginalized, the Indian minorities are being marginalized by the current regime. We have not seen it in last 70 years, 75 years of almost in India, but the way this current regime is doing. So they have something different to do. So I think, I don't think, and also they know that UN Security Council resolution or the UN CIP resolutions don't allow them to do so. Even Geneva Conventions don't allow them to do so, because it will be then illegal. Because when that they can't make any material changes on the ground, they can transfer the population on the ground through legal means. So whatever they are doing it illegally, they are doing immorally, they are using their military might, they are using their economic clout at present, their strategic partnership with the Western world, and unfortunately with others also, to suppress this moment.
Thank you. You also mentioned that they, in many ways, are following the Israeli model of oppression through settler colonialism. And among the things that are being done is that they're, as you said, arresting the leadership and also curtailing assembly. So without leaders who are supporting, who are fighting for the rights of Kashmiris, they're being imprisoned, and the supporters of Kashmiri rights are not able to assemble and to group. How strong an impact is this having on allowing and enabling the Indian repression to continue?
See, it is on the ground. I see the people of Kashmir, the younger generation of Kashmir is very much aware about it, and this moment has been transferred one generation to another generation. Now you see the leadership, the new leadership is emerging. They will emerge with the course of time, and the leadership which is currently in jails, they also emerged during the course of time. They become the leaders. So new leadership is also emerging on the ground. That should not be the problem at all. But what the Indians think that by caging the leaders, by putting them behind the bars, they will make them to surrender to their will, so that they can come to their terms. What India says and all that. India failed it. During 90s, they arrested all our leaders. They put them behind bars for a long period of time, and they tried to win over them, but they failed to win. Our leaders have time and again said that we want nothing short of right to self-determination. We want that if people of Kashmir decide to be with India, we will have no problem. We will not live here, but we will have no problem at that. We want a democratic right. But what Indians are doing, they are selling the normalcy outside the world, because on the one hand, they have put the about 9 to 10,000, 100,000 troops on Kashmir, and they have been, as I said earlier, they are very much empowered to kill to anybody. They can arrest anybody. They can barge anybody's house. They can destroy anybody's house. So no, there's no accountability to that. Until date, we have not seen any accountability of the Indian soldier there. But on the other hand, they are putting their what they say to the international world. They have put whole of the Kashmir as a real state before the Indian realtors and also some of the international investors, that here's a place you can invest, you can get the money and all that. And that is a way how the big corporates are taking over Kashmir. The Modi style of development is to hand over whole of the Kashmir to the corporates of India, so that on one hand, the land is occupied by the military. On the other hand, the corporators of India will come and they will occupy land. And with that will come another security grid, another culture and all that. And they want to take each and everything what they are doing. But I will tell you, the people of Kashmir are putting a tough resistance to this. Maybe that is not known at this time. They are not able to talk. They are not able to converge together. But any time when they get any of the chance, they do express themselves. They have expressed it through different means. Recently, you might have gone through and there was an article by someone who said how the expressions are coming at different places in Kashmir, how the people do express through creating such images and all that. This say this is our expression, what we want, what actually India is doing, how we must go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Again, you brought up a number of issues that I want to go into more deeply. You mentioned that Indian soldiers are able to arrest, kill, and hold people for any reason whatsoever, or no reason. That's indefinite detention, which is a euphemism for holding people without charge and without even telling them why they've been arrested. And they can be held for, actually, I think it's 6 months, but then it can be renewed for another six indefinitely. And how is that impacting? Certainly it impacts Kashmiri resistance, but the day-to-day life of Kashmiris, when someone's father, mother, brother, sister could just be arrested and held indefinitely. How is that? What impact is that having on Kashmiris today?
See, that is having a very bad impact on his family, on their living of the family. When a bad earner of a family is being arrested and put behind bars for unaccounted number of days or years, and at the end of the day, when you are released, but there is no repression for that, you were put behind the bars, there was no case against it. But while as the international law says that the government should pay the repression to the person who has been detained arbitrarily for that much of time. But in Kashmir, you can see some of our young scholars, businessmen and others who are arrested in mainland India on different accounts, on fabricated charges, put behind bars, released after 30 years, found not guilty, but paid no reparation. In that period of time, some of their family members died. Someone came to whom he was not even recognized as his home, because all his family members, be that mother, father, and all his siblings have disappeared during that period of time. They died during that period of time. So this kind of living in Kashmir is not for one, it is hundreds and thousands of people who are in this kind of. And now what the government of India has done from 2014 onwards, this current regime, and they took it, they also decided to take even an ordinary activist from Kashmir who is detained, they are taken to the different jails in India. And you see, there is a large, that costs to the family when they go to see him. And then there also, they said, oh, that there's no time to see him. And the family has to travel 3,000 kilometers and to see as a sibling, and then you are being provided just a few minutes of you can meet him, you can talk to him, but come back. And it has a large burden on their families. On one hand, their breadwinner is in the jail. On the other hand, there is more liability on them to do it. So this has caused us a trauma in Kashmir. Most of the people are facing this trauma. Now we have currently, the Indian government is also facilitating in Kashmir the drug addiction of the younger generation, because people are frustrated. When the people get frustrated, they become easy prey to all these addictions. And the government of India and its soldiers are facilitating that in Kashmir. And we have, it was in a UN report that more than 70,000 people in a small piece of land are consuming heroin and other drugs. And more than there are lots of people who have different drug addictions, and because of that, their families are facing a huge problem, and there is no center for to the rehabilitation of these drug addictions. That is the problem. The people are facing a huge problem over there. And on the other hand, you have also seen the way our leaders, three of them died in the custody because they were not provided the proper medical facilities, be that Ashraf Serai Saab, be that Mr Altaf Shah and Ghulam Bhatt. All these died in the custody of the Indian jails. They died because they were not provided with the proper medical facilities. They were not taken to the hospital. And Sampet is being this, we see about Yasin Malik, Shabir Shah, Naeem Muhammad Khan, Asya Indirabi, Masrat Alam, and others who are languishing in different Indian jails, especially in Tihar jail. They are also facing the same problems. So the situation is there now, a very precarious situation for the people who are there.
The fact that drug addiction is increasing, and this demoralization that you mentioned, where families of prisoners have to travel thousands of kilometers and only get a few minutes with their loved one who's in prison, usually without any charge. This demoralization is actually what the Indian government is looking for, to weaken the population, to break their spirit. These are things that the Indian government is trying to do to the people of Kashmir. Now, you also talked about press freedom and freedom of speech and so on. In June of 2020, the Indian government established a new policy in Jammu and Kashmir that empowered the authorities to decide what is fake news, what is plagiarism, and any anti-national activities, and empower them to take punitive action against any media outlets or journalists or editors that are printing this. Now, freedom of speech and freedom of the press is a hallmark and a foundation of a democratic government. How can the Indian government justify these actions and still call itself a democracy?
This is something to ponder on for the international community and for those who talk about India as the largest democracy, who talk about India as a secular state, or who talk about India as a pluralistic society. What we have seen in Kashmir, as we talked about in 2020, when the new media policy was introduced in Kashmir, you could see there is nothing, no one can report about the human rights violation in occupied Kashmir in the Indian press or the local press. No one can write an article to this end. You can yourself see what that they look like the government spokespersons and all that, because in each and every media house there is a person from the government agency who validates what should be printed or what should be talked about, what not. That is what they are doing. And on the other hand, what they have done, all those, they say that these people are making some problems, these people are they are reporting fake news and all that, while as those people get international awards for their reporting, for their press work. And what India does over the period of time in these years, they did not allow any of them to travel abroad to receive those awards. And most recently, Sana Motu, a photojournalist from Kashmir, a female photojournalist from Kashmir, she was traveling to France to receive an award, but she was deported from, she was not allowed to leave the country. Likewise, many others, Gawhar Gilani and others, they were not allowed, and Fahad Shah and others, they are languishing in jails because they were reporting about the human rights situation in Kashmir. And you have heard about Dr. Ala Fazli. He was a PhD scholar in Jammu University, Kashmir University. He has written an article in 2011. And for that article, he was booked under UAPA, and he is not allowed to come out, because why did he wrote an article in 2011? So this kind of situation, what India tried to do is that they want to create a curtain wall between the Kashmiris and the world. The world should not know. But thanks to the our younger generation in Kashmir, the people who are well versed with the media and all that things, they are very much articulate in their things. They wrote books, they wrote articles, they are working with the international media, they spread the news abroad. And that is how the people at international level, and also we are thankful to the UN special rapporteurs who time and again wrote to the government of India about it. Though the government of India doesn't take care of any of these, they say we have our own way of our doing, we have our own constitution, we don't need external advices. It's all because I think international community has failed to make India accountable of its crimes. If international governments would have spoken loud and clear about these rights violations, India would have not gone so far. But the governments did not speak on this, but thankfully the Human Rights Organization and UN Special Reports do time and again talk about it and create some of awareness. But the international leaders have failed the people of Kashmir. United Nations Security Council as such has failed the people of Kashmir by not making India accountable for its crimes in Kashmir. What more can be written on it when the Genocide Watch chief, the Genocide Watch issued almost 3 alerts on Kashmir that genocide is taking place in Kashmir, it is underway in Kashmir. So this is time for international community, I think, to realize this.
Sir, thank you. I think I'm now audible to you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Sorry, audience, for the technical fault at our end. I was not able to speak before. So, sir, you have said that the international community has entirely or solely disappointed the Kashmiri resistance movement. So, sir, what do you think? What is the hope with the people, and what is a hope for the future of the people's welfare?
You see, when it comes to the hope of the people of Kashmir, I think people never lost their hope. They are still on it, and there is nothing for them. They can't surrender. The kind of surrender is not there. The people are very much hopeful that they will continue their struggle, come what may. But at the same time, they still pen hopes on the UN. They still have the hope that international community will intervene at some time and will make India accountable and will enforce as plebiscite in Kashmir and peace in this region. At the same time, I must say that if the international community still waits and watches for the situation the way they are doing, the way they are not taking any action against India, or they are not making any efforts to resolve this conflict, this may push again the people, the younger generation of Kashmir, towards the other options. The other options than the option they currently are making, that is a peaceful option of resistance, political way of doing. When all these spaces, like you don't allow us to write in the press, you don't allow us to assemble anywhere, you don't allow our leaders or activists to travel abroad, you don't give any room to the peaceful vent of our anger, what is the option left for the Kashmiris? Then there will be the other ways. The other ways are the violent ways, and that violent will jeopardize the peace in the region, because it's not only the people of Kashmir or that of the government of India are fighting. And on one hand, we are seeing a rise in Hinduism, Hindutva ideology in India, which is becoming a threat to the international peace and order. On the other hand, when there will be this will lead to radicalization of our youth also. Our youth will have the same, pay in the same coin to the Indians and to others also. So that will have a different impact on this region. And also we see what is happening because of Afghanistan in the region, and people are trying to resolve Afghanistan. But we also say that the gateway to peace in this region comes through Kashmir. If Kashmir is resolved, you can have India and Pakistan on the same grid, you can have China on the same grid, and by that way, we can resolve Afghanistan also peacefully.
Sir, in your earlier comment,
can't hear you.
Thoroughly explained about the abrogation of Article 370 and 35A from the. Sir,
we're not able to.
We're losing you.
Oh, carry on, please.
Okay. Thank you. You mentioned a couple of things again that I want to focus on. One is that no kind of resistance is acceptable. Peaceful resistance is not acceptable. Violent resistance is not acceptable. The people of Kashmir are just expected to surrender. And as you said, they're never going to do that. I do want to bring up something that is not talked about much, and that is torture and the use of torture in prisoners. Now, what I have learned is that there is a wide variety of physical and psychological torture that is perpetrated on innocent victims. Beatings, electrical shocks, burning with hot irons and live cigarettes. There's something called the roller treatment, in which men roll up a heavy metal or wooden log across the body of a victim, crushing their bones from the neck to their feet. People are forced to watch family members being tortured. All kinds of things. How is the international community ignoring this? You mentioned before that the international community has really not paid the right attention to these horrendous human rights abuses that are happening in Kashmir. How do they justify ignoring this?
You say, Rabat, in 2014-15, we have a report from on the JKCC, Jammu Kashmir Coalition of Civil Society, that was about the torture in Kashmir, torture as an industry in Kashmir. And that report its prologue was written by the former special rapporteur on torture, and he also vindicated all our what we have written in that, how India is endorsed implicating the people of Kashmir torture, and the 39 types of tortures are being done in Indian occupied Kashmir. And all that in 2012, you might have read that global report on the torture cells, secret detention centers. That was primarily for Guantanamo Bay, Abu Ghraib and others. But then the UN special rapporteurs, 5 of the UN special rapporteurs collectively, they discovered 450 such places in Indian occupied Kashmir where torture is being carried out. This whole set of things is there. Then the report from the Special Rapporteur extrajudicial execution when he was in India, and he also came to the Indian occupied Kashmir, and his report, that's a worth reading report, and there can be nothing more than that when you read that report, how that's an FIR against the Indian government. But again, I remember at that time in the United Nations Human Rights Council, when the Special Rapporteur, be he rest in peace, Christoph Hans from South Africa, he was told by the Indians, behave like a special rapporteur, not a special prosecutor. So when I say the international community has failed, I mean to say it, because international community never gave heed to any of these reports, be that report of the Office of the High Commissioner, 2 reports, that of 2018 and 2019. Those reports are an FIR against the Indian government. If those reports are fully endorsed and the international government pays an heed to that, I think there is nothing that can save the government of India from accountability. But again, we see these human rights are being taken as where they have their own strategical interest, and then they talk about human rights. Where they have their own economic interest, they talk about human rights. Otherwise, they don't talk about it openly. We say that Europeans have a very good human rights record and they talk about it. But unfortunately, when it comes to Kashmir, they remain also silent. Even in their parliaments, debates are held. Everything is done. But again, when it comes to the governments try to keep mum on the situation in Kashmir when they talk in the Human Rights Council, when they talk in the UNGA or other international forums. That has encouraged India. I think what India has been doing or India is doing, that has encouraged the government of India, because there is no international accountability for that.
And again, we see a parallel with Israel, no international accountability. So Israel continues to commit its crimes against humanity as India does in Kashmir. Another topic that I want to talk about that's related to these is children. And it's been said that children are the first victims of any war, or maybe truth is the first victim, children the second victim. But in a report from December or rather September of 2020 called Children in Armed Conflict.
Armed conflict.
Excuse me?
Yeah. Children in Armed Conflict by UN Secretary General.
Yeah, right. And it verified the killing and maiming of 15 children between the ages of 1 and 17. Also said 68 children between the ages of 9 and 17 have been detained by Indian security services on national security related charges. 9 years old, they're being arrested and detained. The UN has expressed concern about this, but has done nothing to address the issue. Now, you may have answered the same question, this question in your previous answer with talking about the economic considerations and so on. That the world community has regarding its economic ties with India, but how can people excuse these horrendous crimes against children?
See, you talked about the UN Secretary General's report on children in armed conflict, where he says this much of children were killed and these were also arrested during that period of time. And also that report also indicates that government of India is using children as mercenaries during this armed conflict. They force them to do some sort of information gathering for them and all that, and putting their lives at risk at different occasions they have been doing. They are also put the children as human shield in different places. So this all has been reported, as you rightly pointed out, but this is always for me also. For last 15 years, I am a human rights activist. I have been traveling from pillar to post, reporting to each and every UN organ, to the international human rights groups. But again, I will say all these reports, what we write, what the international organizations even write, what they even UN. But at the end of the day, you see the current politics, current world order, the way it is being run, it has its own connotations, and that's why I think again the answer remains the same. Of why it is going unnoticed is again because of this muteness and criminal silence, I must say, from the international governments, by the big powers around the globe who talk about human rights, who take NATO action against Libya when they say there's 12 people were killed in Libya. Now the NATO has to be there to protect the human rights of the Libyans, who say now there are weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. So UN has to intervene in it. So so these all kinds of things, when they don't see that 100,000 people have been killed in Kashmir, there is a genocide happening on. There are almost 10,000 more enforced disappearances. The rape that is being carried out in Kashmir is more than any of the conflict zones ever in the world history. Be it Sierra Leone, Sri Lanka, even we had that South African country, wherefore we have a UN commission on it. Even for that, more rape has been carried out in Indian-occupied Kashmir. The same way, the enforced disappearances, 10,000 plus enforced disappearances in Kashmir. What India has not done, if anybody has a human heart around the globe, any leader and leadership, they will definitely talk about that. They will say that what Indians are doing, this is a crime against humanity, and that for that purpose, the government of India, the government officials should be brought to justice. I must say, when we talk about this, there was another report, structures of violence, alleged perpetrators. And in that report, Jammu Kashmir Coalition of Civil Society has given the names of the officers, whether military officers, police officers, from non-commissioned officer to the rank of Major General, who are involved in different kinds of human rights violations with proper documentation from the government sources, because at that point of time, there was right to information available for certain months. And because of that, those all information were gathered from there. But again, we see just these reports we do disseminate, we do try to create the awareness among the people, but at the power corridors, it has become very much difficult to engage in those power corridors. When we talk to the people, they say we encourage India and Pakistan to talk together, but they forget that the primary people are the people of Jammu and Kashmir. The primary people are those who are the victims of the state terrorism of India. Why should not we talk about their miseries? Why should not we talk about their sufferings and all that? I think you see, we have a big forum, the second biggest forum, OIC. 57 countries were there. They are passing resolutions every time, and they have also appointed a special envoy on Kashmir. But Indians don't allow them to go to India. They don't want them to go to Kashmir either, not India. They are always come to the Pakistan, the Azad Kashmir, they visit, they go, but they don't allow them. And recently, the OIC Secretary General also spoke, and when he visited the line of control and saw by himself how Indians have damaged the properties of the people living in the life of control, and he talked about it. But at the end of the day, the response from the government of India was that OIC has no local stand-by in the Kashmir issue.
Many governments say that, of course, Donald Trump, who's president of the US, said that the Kashmir issue was an internal Indian issue, and the Indian government had under control. So this is, of course, a complete lie, because several United Nations resolutions have said that it is to be the future of Kashmir is to be established by a plebiscite. I think we have Khawaja back.
Oh, Thank you, Robert.
Perhaps not.
I'm sorry again. But I just want to bring one angle to the discussion that has left unattended. That is, after the abrogation of Article 370 and 35A from the Indian Constitution, India has brought technically China into the equation. And it has added a support to resistance, in my opinion. So that, like in Galwan Valley, the incidents happened that because the Chinese have a few territorial claims on few square kilometers. So how you see that bringing China into the equation, how it will help the Kashmiri resistance, or will help or give people hope?
See, it's true that after 5th of August, China has become an active partner in a way, because China has a border disputes with on Ladakh, because China has a claim this border dispute with them was during the British rule also, and thereafter it was there. So, but when the United Nations passed a resolution to this effect in way back in 1948, then China had an agreement with government of Pakistan, all that, when this resolution of Kashmir is done then. But with India, they had always that border issue. So when India abrogated it and made Ladakh a union territory, China became an active partner in this dispute. In one way, it's a hopeful, it creates a hope that a Security Council member is at least now an active partner in this dispute. But on the other hand, what India wants, what India is trying to do, they are trying to, in a way, taking advantage of this by getting more and more support from the Western world and the United States. They try to, by bringing China, and that they have also put India as a stakeholder in the South Asia, being in front of China, and India is taking their own, but on the other hand, we see that the way the Indian and Chinese border issues are on one side, but on the other hand, when you see their trade relation, when you see the quantum of their trade that has increased in last 2 years, for a short period of time it was down, but then it increased. So it will have an impact on Kashmir, but I don't think it will create a more of an impact in that way in resolution of Kashmir in that. But at least a hope is there that the Security Council member is in this. He will press for it, and for to some extent now the Chinese have changed the language to the Kashmir, that they say it should be resolved through the UN Security Council resolutions. Earlier, they were trying to say that India and Pakistan should discuss over it. Now they are talking about the UN Security Council resolutions. But still, you see, the polarization in the international politics has caused Kashmir a lot in past, and it will, I think, it is continuing to cost us at present also.
One of the ways that the Indian government is damaging Kashmir and Kashmiris is through destruction of property, leaving people homeless and destroying their businesses. Even in the forests and remote places in Kashmir, the apple trees that people have used to sustain themselves for generations are being cut down by the thousands, and this serves to demoralize the people, but also from a very practical viewpoint to deprive them of their livelihood, deprive them of their homes. Can you talk about that a little bit, please?
Yeah, Indians are themselves, the Indian leadership, even some of the top leaders are even Indian, some of the political commentators have talked about it, that how come people of Kashmir sustain if we have done so much to them, but even then they are sustaining this moment, they are carrying forward this moment the way in the current era, the way they are demolishing the properties. Not first time they are demolishing, they demolished the properties right from 90s onwards. They burned a lot of you must have Sopor, Lal Chowk, Anantnag, Islamabad, and Kupwara. All these markets were burned down by the Indians, and also the houses of the people were burned. And that was a way to to inflict the pain on people of Kashmir. But these days, they do just spend a few minutes to demolish a house, to demolish a property or work. And they are increasing the cost of resistance for the people of Kashmir. That is the only, they try to increase our cost of resistance by doing so, and so that they see that people will come to their terms. But again, I will say, by destroying our whole of the agriculture, whole of our horticulture industry, because this horticulture industry, apple industry was one of the biggest industries of Kashmir, but now the Indians have the monopoly on that, this and all that. And also our people are now frightened to go to India to do their businesses, and this is another way of choking our spaces of economy. And during the that lockdown time which had earlier, some 6.5 trillion losses to the Kashmir economy were during that period of time. But even then, Indians are themselves surprised how people of Kashmir still are alive, how still they do it. Because Robert, I will say I'm talking to the people here in Islam and other places also. We are back to the era of 1921, when Kashmiris had no right to get government jobs, when they were taxed for each and everything. They were taxed for each and everything, and there was no this state subject law in Kashmir, and Kashmiri Muslims had no say in the policy making, or they were not politically empowered. We are living on in that era, and that's in our genes. We have fought against the occupiers in past. We have been fighting these occupiers, and we have lived through these hard times in past. Our ancestors have lived, our generations have lived. That's perhaps that keeps the moral of our younger generation, the upcoming generation, that we will fight. You people failed, but we will continue our fight. And I don't see any of the Kashmiris saying this, that we should give up. Every Kashmiri I talk, every youngest, they say, no, you did it wrong. We are doing it right. We will do it on our way. So that is the hope. That is in the genes of Kashmiris, the struggle. Though world may not know. So I met a Palestinian friend way back. He said, we have learned this stone throwing from Kashmiris. The people know the Intifada of Palestine. But they said, no, we have learned it from Kashmiris. So we were doing it way back in 47 also. The same was the kind of resistance of ours in that period also. We don't have guns, we didn't have anything at the time. We have only the stones which are still there. They cannot take all of the stones from there. So our resistance will continue. That is the only hope. The hardships the people of Kashmir face, they are immense. You have heard recently the BBC report that people do not even talk about the resistance even within their homes clearly, because they think everything is being bugged, everything is being heard by Indians, so they will face repression. But even then, they are not ready to give up. So that is, I think, the silver lining for the people of Kashmir is that they hope with their younger generation and the resilience their elder generation has shown. That is their whole wealth, and they will carry with this.
Good. Khawaja, do you have something? I have another question if you, unless you have something right now.
Oh, I don't have questions. I just have a salute for the courage to the Kashmiri resistance and the fighters. They are the real warriors, because my ancestors moved back from Kashmir to Punjab before 1920 when this all started. So we still, our families introduce ourselves as Kashmiris, and we are proud of it.
Thank you, Khawaja.
Thank you. And I will endorse that that respect for the resistance that the Kashmiris are continuing to demonstrate among, even when there is such horrific repression. I know we're a little pressed for time, but I did want to mention some that I think is basic. And Dr. Wani, you referred to this, you alluded to this anyway, but and what I'm talking about is the Hindu nationalism versus Islam. Now, In 1923, a Hindutva ideologue, Vinayak Damodar Savarkar, excuse me if Savarkar,
Yes,
okay, thank
right.
you. He said that Hindus are the only true Indians, and that Muslims and Christians couldn't be considered Indian, and that to do so, they must either adopt the Hindu culture and language and respect and hold in reverence the Hindu religion, or they must lose their separate existence. Otherwise, they deserve nothing, no privileges, not even the rights of citizens. So it seems to me that that's what from 100 years ago is what India is attempting to implement today. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, exactly the way this current government of India took place, the BJP, Modi came into power in 2014. Until then, we could see that they are on that target to achieve their target. The way in the first tenure, they had some small steps to that end. But in the second tenure, after 2019 onwards, they started from Kashmir abrogating the Article 335, which was the dream of the founder of RSS, then Jan Sangh, Shama Prasad Mukherjee, in 1948 also. He dreamed of that. At that time, he said that there should be no Article 370, 35A in Kashmir. Kashmir should be totally integrated in the Indian Union. He traveled to Kashmir. He was arrested. He was traveling to there for agitation. He was arrested at that time, and he died in a Srinagar guest house while in detention. So that is why they are trying to fulfill the dreams of their ancestors, what they said. They are pursuing these policies in Kashmir by constructing more than 50,000 new mandirs in temples in Kashmir at different places. In order to, you see, when in a small place like Kashmir, you have so much of temples, that means you are changing the religious landscape of the area. You have already changed the political landscape by delimitation of the assembly segments, by bringing more of the Indians to establish Kashmir, by bringing more of the bureaucracy of India to the Kashmir. Because at this point of time, whole of the Kashmir is being governed by the non-state subjects. They are all officers. They are from the India. They are most of them, if not all, most of them belong to this RSS brigade. So this RSS has been described 2 times during this Congress regime as banned organization in India. So it's a militant organization. It has a fascist ideology, and they are implementing that. It's not, I told earlier you, that it's not now only Kashmir or India. It's crossing the borders. You have seen recently the attacks, the way they carried out in England against the Muslims there. They are carrying the borders. The United States have different, the way they are collecting funds and preaching about this Hindutva ideology in the United States. So it is crossing the borders of India. So I think, and they have a huge population. So the international community will have to see that when they see each and everything as related to Islam, radicalization, and all these things, but they forget that this is a huge organization. This has 600,000 members who are trained, who are well-trained, and they are being trained for their hate speech also, and by otherizing the minorities. And I think the Modi regime, the kind of leadership they have put in Uttar Pradesh, the biggest province in India, the biggest state in India, other than not Yogi type person and all those, by looking at them, by looking at their ideologies, by their talks, by their hate speech, anybody can imagine itself to which way India is going. So I think it's total, India has been taken over by these radical Hindus, by these RSS ideologists, and they have taken over almost each and every organ of the state. They have taken over the judiciary, they have taken over the parliament, and they have taken over the executive in India, and they are taking the streets of India also.
Okay, very difficult situation. Before we close, just a quick question. what can be done? What can people around the world who recognize the atrocities that are being committed in Kashmir do to assist the people there? There must be something that governments are ignoring the situation, but as we know, it's always from the bottom up. It's when the people of any country start to agitate for change that the governments eventually must change. So in so-called democratic and so-called free countries, what can people do that would benefit the people of Kashmir?
You see, the only thing they can do, and which can be very much helpful for the people of Kashmir, is that unfortunately we lack some resources to reach to each and everybody and to speak their language and to tell them the story of Kashmir. Those people who know the story of Kashmir, who know the ground realities in Kashmir, they have the moral responsibility in a way to educate the local masses, to create awareness in their respective countries, in their respective academia and colleges, universities and think tanks, so that the local public comes to know. And when a public opinion is made about it, and it becomes easier for the people in the government to act upon, because when they have a support, they have a force from the public, they have to do something, they can do. Like in Canada, way back, there is a policy that if any of the Indians or anybody elsewhere is found guilty of anything, or he has any human rights bad record of him, Canada doesn't allow them to come. We have a history of the Indian former major. He was an Indian major. He was accused, not accused, he was involved in the killing of the famous human rights defender of Kashmir, Jalil Indrabi. When he tried to go to Canada, the Canadian police was after him, and he came back to the United States. And then after some time, he killed himself, his wife, and his children because of all that he was facing. So I think the academia at international level, the think tanks and human rights groups, not just they are publishing reports, but dissemination of these reports and to engage the local population, create that awareness so that their legislators, their representatives, political representatives are aware of it, and they speak in their parliaments and help their executives to shape their policies in line with what actually their policies should be, and to speak for the rights of people of Kashmir.
Thank you, Altaf Saab. All the prayers are with the Kashmir fighters and the Kashmir people of Kashmir and Jammu. We all hope that it comes to a conclusion and they get their right of determination and the self-respect they deserve, the freedom they deserve. It is all we can pray for and we can work for. And let me assure you that we all are working and we all will work together with you. And thank you so much for your time today. I think we have lost Robert because it is something technical at the part of Zoom that is not letting us record. Because I have checked my internet connections. I have 3 internet connections and I switched them one by one, but internet is fine. Something is wrong with Zoom. So we have to really work on the post-production of editing this podcast. But I hope we have all the recordings and the Robert has joined us back. Robert, do you want to say the last one?
I just want to thank you, Dr. Wani, for your time, your expertise today. This has been very informative, and we appreciate what you've talked about. We encourage people to learn more about Kashmir and the suffering that's happening there, and to work to end that suffering, to work to defeat the Indian policy in Kashmir and enable the people of Kashmir to determine for themselves how they want to govern themselves and how they want their country to be managed. So thank you for your time, your expertise, and your efforts on behalf of suffering people in Kashmir.
Thank you, Robert, for having me, and Khawaja for having me. It has been always pleasure, Robert, talking to you and giving you inconvenience during your midnight and early mornings to come to the webinars and the places. So I will continue to do that. Don't worry.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So nice of you. So nice of you. It was a
Thank you,
pleasure.
Thank
Arvind.
you.
This is all.
Thank you.